Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Chardok. I'm Momentary from Project 99's Blue Server. Today, I'll be showing you around a little bit, giving you some tours, as well as kind of trying to give you a 101 on how to Chardok. So first and foremost, the one really important thing about Chardok, this is the zone in, so it is not the same as the zone out. That is a very important thing to learn quickly, especially if you need to train. So training here won't do you any good. Everything will just follow you, and you'll probably get a few people killed in the process. So I'll show you the zone out in a moment here. Um, you'll notice that with all these mobs walking by, again, in the last video you saw I was warmly. I'm still conning warmly to all these mobs. Say hi to Doug here. Still conning warmly to all these mobs, and the reason being is there's a faction turn-in quest from this fella right here, Harold Telcha. So if I hail him, he spouts a bunch of stuff about how I'm a lesser being and whatnot. So what you need to do to get good with faction with the Sarnax here in Chardok is you need to either go kill a whole bunch of goblins in Droga, or kind of the lazier route, the route that I took, is to buy a whole mess of green goblin skins and or Mount Death mineral salts and turn them into Telcha here. So if you turn in enough, you'll become non-KOS, and if you turn in even more than that, you can get up to Warmly and then eventually Ally. For Warmly, you actually get this Signet of Service, which it's a pretty passable ring. Not the best in the world, but I wear it. It's one of the better ones that I have access to since I don't really raid. This ring is kind of the first step of the quest for the Spirit Rock Cord as well. So if you're gunning for that, you got to get in good with the Sarnax first. So as promised, we'll run down this way. So this is kind of the entrance area. People will often solo here, kind of go up and down this hallway and kill these sets of mobs. There's a couple pathers. So you saw this stiffer, which can be a Sarnak or a dog. We'll kind of walk back and forth. And there's another pather that walks from over on the other side down to here. Other than the pathers, though, this is just 2 spawns per kind of area. So it's relatively easy to handle. Especially, I leveled my druid here. It's really nice to be able to just charm one of the dogs, take out the other mob, and then take care of the dog as well. All right, so running along here, this is the CE camp right here. So you'll often see groups up here on top that are kind of pulling this castle entrance area. And right up there is the sergeant, which is the placeholder for the first named I'm going to show you. But first, so this is the exit. So the exit leads to the zone out, and people often camp here as well. The zone out is right past this turn, so it'll take you to a slightly different place than the zone in, but you'll be safe if you can get there. So if you do need to train, go up the exit route rather than back to the entrance. All right, we'll start our journey into Chardok here right at the castle entrance. So you see this kind of archway. There's a bunch of mobs in here to pull. This guy right here, this Dizak Sergeant, so he's a placeholder for a couple of named. So one of 2 named can spawn here, actually. There's Captain Dews and Watch Sergeant, I think it's Rizul. So each of them can drop their own kind of stuff. It's not really, a lot of money, but they can drop Druid Earring, a couple other things that I'll throw up on the screen here. The shots once I do the post processing here on the video. But just in general, relatively easy to take out as a chanter, especially. You can just kind of charm this guy and just take out this placeholder or the named really quick. So as a chanter, you're running through here a lot just because you're gating when you're pulling stuff deeper in. So it's kind of nice to be able to check this guy and kind of take him out when he's up. This bridge I will typically jump down from when I'm going to other camps like Koro or the basement camps. For this case, though, for the Observer, we want to go across the bridge. And sometimes you'll see folks camping up here as well. So we come to the Observer camp. So we've got the PH up right here. He's a little bit of a difficult pull for an enchanter. There's sort of a finesse way to do it that I might end up showing you in the future. But for now, his drops, so the main thing he drops that people are looking for is the Baton of Royal Stature, which is a one-handed blunt monk weapon that has a stun proc. So you can kind of pair that with the Adamantite Club and have 2 stunning weapons. He also drops the Fancy Velvet Mantle, which is a caster shoulder item that you'll see on the screen here. Decent money. I've never actually gotten him to drop the Baton of Royal Stature, but I have seen other folks get a lucky spawn with him. So now we're at what we call the bridge, right? So we've got the Bridge Keeper placeholder here. So he's a nice target. Usually you'll find if shamans are up here, they're usually camping him. He's a pretty easy single pull for them because they can just kind of tuck in back here and kind of fight him. And they typically will tank him slowed with torpor, so they're kind of just healing themselves as they get hurt. Bridgekeeper's appreciably larger, so he's a lot taller, but he can drop this Inlay Jade Hoop, which I wear just because it's nice to have a clicky to be a high elf. It's also got somewhat decent stats, some HP, some mana. He can also drop a staff that procs a shaman slow, which is, it's okay. It makes fighting him a little bit more difficult because he will slow your pet, and then the fight will take forever if you're fighting him as a chanter. All right, coming back around here, we have the spawn for the captain. So this is another place where we can get a couple of name spawns. DUs can also spawn here as this placeholder, but Watch Captain Hero is also here. His drop list is he drops an earring of Everfount, which is a mage earring, as well as the Scale of Wolf earring for druids and shamans. So you'll find him camped occasionally. And then next up here we've got the placeholder for the Betrayer. So the Iksar Betrayer drops a piece that is required for the Monk Epic. So you'll often find monks in the zone kind of looking for this particular mob. And when I'm doing Korucust room, which is right back here, it's relatively easy to clear this guy as well. You can just do it with usually a Boltrans will do it, so you don't have to use your Dictate cooldown. And it's a nice thing to do for a monk that's in need, especially ones that they come and they're kind of looking for a group and none really materializes. In my first video, I went through the Korucust room, showed logistics of polling, that kind of thing. For now, though, we'll go through what each of the placeholders are, what the named are, and what they drop. So there's a bunch in here. So we'll start with the Courier. As I mentioned in the last video, he can drop the Writ of Dizak, as well as a potion that can fit in your ammo slot that allows you to do an instant gate to over there. And then he also drops the Slick Courier's Cape, Slick Leather Courier's Cape, which is a halfway decent melee no-drop cape. Behind us here, we've got the Imperial Interrogator. He spawns a Interrogator mob that is called Interrogator Gaimak, who's actually very, very small. The model's very small for whatever reason. He can drop the Nathsar Helm, as well as an Oakleaf Scimitar for druids. And his kind of most desirable drop is the Stealthy Ring of Travel. Then we've got the Inspector. The Inspector is a wizard mob, so if you're pulling him as a chanter, it's not really going to make much of a difference. But if you are fighting the PH for whatever reason, he will gate, so it's safest to fight him right on the spot here. The name that spawns here is the Arch Inspector, and he can drop the Pearly Sarnak Bauble, is probably his best item. He also drops the spell Dead Men Floating for Necromancer, and he drops 2 weapons. One is a cleric weapon called the Sarnak Devastator, and the other is a caster kind of main hand, which is the Dizok Scepter of Authority. Then finally, we've got the Imperial Officer, who is the placeholder for Korucust himself. There's also a mob that spawns here called a Security Officer. Korucust and Security Officer can drop some katanas, which are kind of neat looking if you're looking for a fun tunnel weapon. They also drop some leg plates, the Incarnadine leg plates, and greaves as well. He is a little bit tougher than the other mobs in here. You probably want to fight him on the spot, because again, I believe that he is immune to Dictate, which makes it a little more logistically difficult to pull him as an enchanter. Moving into the graveyard here. So across this bridge, we come to a whole bunch of skeleton mobs and crypt masters, etc. The first thing I'll mention is these skeletons here. They're all placeholders for Battlemaster Ska 2. He's an interesting mob just because he has multiple spawn points. He also drops the Jeldoran sword, which is a pretty good paladin sword, as well as the spell Shroud of Undeath. Typically, this guy right here is where a shaman will camp. They'll do one single spawn, kind of just kill him every 20 or so minutes. Hope for a name spawn. As an enchanter, you can clear more than one. These champions are actually Boltransable, so if you don't want to use your Dictate, you can use Boltrans on them instead. And then back here we've got the Grave Master. He can spawn the Grave Master named mob, who drops the Earring of Blazing Energy, which I am wearing, the Crypt Master's Conjuring Stone. I think what a lot of people are after from him are his no-drop items. The Dizok Deathbringer is one of the big ones that is a Cleric, Shadow Knight, and Paladin weapon that procs a pretty good undead nuke. So a lot of people are camping him for that. That is an no-drop item. So if you have Cleric in zone, Paladin in zone, you want to get that drop, this is where to go. He does have, I will preface it with this, he does have an 8-minute corpse timer if you do kill him. So I've known a couple folks that they try to log over to an alt and they find that the corpse has rotted away already, and that's not a good day for anybody. In the back here we have the library and where the royals are. I'm not going to cover that today just because we have to kind of get through some locked doors and stuff to get back there. But that has a couple other camps. And now we're going to start in the basement, so we can just drop down right from this bridge. And now we are in the bank area. So we'll go through the bank spawns next here. Now we'll head into the bank. As you saw, we just kind of dropped down from up there. And we get right into the bank area with the waterfall on the left here. There are 3 named inside the bank. First one right here, this block Foreman. This is the placeholder for Foreman K. Foreman K, I think his most notable drop is Bone Shear, which is a dagger usable by Necros that procs a summon bone chip spell. So it's a pretty cool little tool. Since you need those bone chips to summon your pet, it's nice to kind of have a built-in way to always get them. Right here we have a Pather, the Drill Master. So this is also a placeholder for the Drill Master named. I think the most notable thing he drops is a no-drop Warbow that I'll throw on the screen here. It's very good for melee as a ranged item. I think rogues especially are looking for it, maybe warriors as well. Just as a good ranged item with some good stats on it. We'll go up here through this little hallway. And now we are in the bank proper. So through this door, we have Vaultmaster Shuzo. So he is our banker. You're able to use him if you're non-KOS. I have actually pulled him to the entrance for folks that need banking for whatever reason. They need to pull an item out of the bank to sell or to use or what have you. You can actually pacify around him, grab him with a charm spell, and then drag him all the way back to the entrance. And as long as he's your pet, he cons indifferent to everyone. So it's a nice favor you can do for people if you have a moment. And finally, we've got the manager here. So the manager is a placeholder for the Sarnak Collective Auditor. He has some really good drops, actually. So the main thing people are looking for from him is the Girdle of Rapidity, which I have here. So the Girdle of Rapidity is a very good caster belt, especially for a enchanter. Again, it's probably best in slot prior to raiding, which, since I don't raid, it's what I wear. It sells for a good chunk of change as well. So he's pretty sought after. As far as the pulling process for him, it's pretty complicated. Again, it takes some finesse, but you can pull him without doing any pacifying. If you are fighting the name, though, you kind of have to pacify everything in this room. Otherwise, they can come in and interfere and spoil your day. Basement camps. So this Underboss here is the placeholder for another Foreman, actually Foreman M, as we call him, or Foreman Mirtak, I think is how you'd say it. All these Sarnak names are a little impenetrable. So Mirtak can actually drop a few decent things. He drops Fester, which is a dot procking dagger for rogues. He can also drop the Girdle of Flayed Iksar, which is actually a pretty good priest belt. It's got some wisdom, some stamina, I believe some mana on it. And then his common drop is less good. It's an item that lets you right click. It's got 10 charges. Lets you right click levitate, which not the worst thing in the world. But again, when you see that, you're pretty disappointed usually. Now we'll just turn around here, go over to the Trustee spot. So this Iksar Collaborator is the placeholder for the Iksar Trustee. Interestingly, the Collaborator is not on the same faction as any of these other mobs, so you're free to pull him without pacifying. The Trustee, however, is on the same faction as the other mobs, so you can kill the Collaborator without pulling or without pacifying around him. But once you get a Trustee spawn, you have to pacify these 3 skeletons to actually engage him. So the Trustee drops one of 2 earrings for clerics and shaman. One is the Earring of Purity, and one is the Earring of Cleansing. And one will have a clicky cure poison, the other has a clicky cure disease. So those are fun little clicky toys. I like kind of collecting those, and if there are shamans or clerics up top that have helped me out, I like just kind of dropping random gifts on them, because they don't sell for a huge amount, but they can definitely be big upgrades for people that are XPing here. So first of all, we've got this Wizened herb collector here. He is actually a named, but there are 2 named that spawn in this spot as well. The other one being the Alchemist Acolyte. So each of them has their own loot tables. The real big ticket item here from the herb collector is the Herbalist Spade. So the Herbalist Spade procs a root, and it's usable by basically all melee, which is really nice for like a warrior or a monk especially. They're able to proc that, and it helps them solo quite a bit if they can, reliably root a mob, back off, and then kind of heal up as necessary. The other spawn here is the Alchemist Acolyte, who can drop a couple kind of bigger ticket things. One of them is the right-click evac staff for druids and wizards. So basically, if you have that in your inventory, you can always swap it in and right-click it and get your group out of trouble. That Acolyte also drops the Ring of Dizak, which is it's a decent ring. It's got some HP and mana on it. If you're maxed out on your Wisdom or your Int for a caster. And inside the hut here, we have the Grand Herbalist placeholder, this Dizak Herbalist here. The Grand Herbalist is a very sought-after mob as well. So his big drop that a lot of people are looking for in Chardok is the small Manisi plant. This is a item that you can basically, any class can use it. It's right-click, summon bandages. Really sought after for monks especially. So monks are unable to use the dagger that summons, that procs a summon of bandages. So this is a really useful item. They don't have to lug around a bunch of bandages, which add weight to them, etc. They can just kind of have the plant on them, and then when they need bandages, they can summon a whole stack just by right-clicking it. His other drops, not so good. He does actually drop a item that is used for the Necromancer Epic, but it is, in my understanding, a optional item. You can just kind of kill the mob instead. So it's a nice thing to have drop, especially if there's somebody here waiting for it. But I typically don't even try to sell it because most really don't want it or don't need it. But that small Manisi plant, you got a lot of monks kind of asking chanters in the zone if they're farming it and if they can buy loot rights. And the Overseer. So the Overseer is another mob that has a very kind of high-end item that folks will pay for loot rights on. There's a no-drop mask, the Desiccated Halfling Mask. It is a right-click effect as Illusion Halfling. It's usable by bards, rogues, and enchanters. Obviously, enchanters not a huge deal, but for the other two, it's really the only way they can appear like a halfling on a permanent basis. So that will sell for a good amount. This guy will also drop a cloak, the Iksar Hide Cape. That's essentially a Hierophant's cloak, but doesn't have stats, so it's got the 75 HP and 75 mana. So that sells for a decent amount as well. Shamans will typically camp this guy as well. They can sort of stand right here and tank and not get aggro from any of his neighbors if they're on the other side of this lip. You can also, so for these no drop items, which for Grand Herbalist and for Overseer and later we'll see Kennel Master, it's handy to have a non-KOS cleric around, just so you can kind of drag and res, just in case somebody needs to loot and they're not they're KOS, so they can't really get down here on their own. Next up, we got Underboss Myliki. So this is his placeholder, the veteran Underboss. He drops a couple things. He can drop a very rare, in my experience, a very rare hammer. The Sarnak Lightning Caller, which actually procs a nuke that is kind of fun to have on your monk. So I have one on mine that I got a couple months ago. He also drops a fairly nice caster mask, this Tattered Flesh Veil. Alright, down in this pit, this Imperial War Dog is the placeholder for Deathfang, which is our scaled wolf named. He can drop a few halfway decent things. He drops let me see if this is the right one. That's the Cobalt Scartooth. He can drop the Rabid Chokodai Fang or the Imperial War Dog Collar. His rare drop is the Chokodai Hide or his rare drop is the Chokodai Hide Pauldrons, which are really sought after for tanks. They have a deficit to AC, but give you a whole lot of HP. So if you're into that, then this is your mob. And then finally, and this is, oh, not camped. So this is the Kennel Master spawn. So Kennel Master is often camped, especially by shamans or other classes even. They can kind of pull him back to here and fight him right on the spot. This is another case of a really, really sought-after no-drop item that we usually kind of have to make arrangements for ahead of time. So he drops this Hammered Golden Loop, which you can see has a penalty to AC, but gives you a whole mess of HP, especially if you're like a warrior, you're getting a lot of HP from that 8 stamina. Whereas the AC, it is a hit, but maybe if you're geared a certain way, then this will help more than it hurts. Also a really nice item for classes that use a lot of HP or can turn their HP into mana, like a Necromancer or a Shaman. So again, having that extra, probably upwards of 100 HP is really nice. Hope you enjoyed our little tour today. I will do the library at a later time. It's a little more tricky to get to. You need to kind of get through some locked doors. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the tour so far. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.